So this is pretty interesting. Jerry Jones wanted Rashod Bateman. Jordan Schultz just reported that during their pursuit of a receiver, the Cowboys also looked into a trade for Ravens wide receiver Rashod Bateman. Those talks didn't go far, and Dallas ultimately struck a post-draft deal with the Steelers for George Pickens. Dallas's search for another wide receiver was a month-long process. First of all, thank God that Eric DeCosta hung up the phone and didn't entertain this, because the contract that the Ravens have Rashod Bateman on right now, after the year he just had, is a steal, is insane value, and we need to utilize that contract. I hope Bateman's here for years to come. I hope he has a very healthy career, and I hope that's in Baltimore, because after what we just saw last year, Bateman was everything that we wanted out of that original first-round pick when we got Bateman a couple years ago. But obviously injuries derailed his start to Baltimore. But after getting an opportunity last year, Rashod Bateman absolutely ran with it. I mean, breakout year for Rashod Bateman, huge asset to this offense, huge help for Lamar Jackson in this passing game. When Zay Flowers went down, Rashod Bateman stepped right up to carry the weight. So, I mean, Rashod Bateman is needed in this Ravens offense, and especially the contract that he has. Last year, we paid him $1 million. In 2025, he's due to make $3.75 million. And then in 2026, he's making $6.5 million. If you take a look at the wide receiver market across the league and then compare that to Rashod Bateman's contract numbers, the Ravens extended him at the perfect time, and the team got a steal. I mean, it is what it is. If I'm Rashod, obviously after this year, I want an extension for much bigger numbers. I totally get him wanting more money. I'm not saying that he shouldn't ask for more money at some point. I mean, he deserves more money. That's why I'm sitting here saying it's a steal. Rashod is outperforming that low of a contract. Obviously, Jerry Jones wanted him. I also find it interesting that before last year, nobody was even thinking of Rashod Bateman outside of Ravens fans. Nobody around the NFL was thinking about Rashod Bateman. When you brought up the name Rashod Bateman, it was like, oh, the guy who's like always hurt, it's not going to work out. Another Baltimore Ravens wide receiver that doesn't work out. Well, he changed that story last year. There's no doubt about it. He changed the narrative. 45 catches, 756 yards, 9 touchdowns in the regular season, 2 touchdowns in the postseason. I know these aren't like superstar wide receiver numbers, but you have to look at the road that Bateman had. You have to look at the role that he had coming into the offense last year. You have to look at the contract numbers. The Ravens extended him when he was first coming back from injury and didn't break out like he did last year. I think this is just the start of Rashod Bateman's career. Last year, in my opinion, was year one. I know rocky road of injuries, but he got past that. He had a fully healthy season, and he produced. And if he gets more targets, he'd have bigger numbers. It's not like Rashod Bateman couldn't have bigger numbers. Some people might be like, oh, it was only 700 yards. Well, he's our wide receiver too. And if you add the tight ends, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, their impact, Derrick Henry in the run game, Lamar Jackson running the ball, there's only one football. Not everybody on the Ravens can have crazy stats. So the fact that Rashod Bateman put those numbers up, especially all those touchdowns, I mean, he was clutch for us last year, game in and game out, and is going to be a huge asset on this team for at least the next 2 years. He's not an unrestricted free agent until 2027. Now we'll see in 2026 if he wants a new contract and what happens there. But either way, the Ravens have Bateman locked up for at least 2 more years. And why would you trade that contract? That would be the dumbest decision ever. But it also shows that there's respect on Rashod Bateman's name now. People saw what happened last year. Jerry Jones, I'm not saying he's the best GM in the world, but Jerry Jones is trying to trade for Rashod Bateman for a reason. He might have wanted to trade for Rashod Bateman instead of George Pickens. I know he shopped around to a lot of different wide receivers, and, it said the Ravens talks didn't go very far. Shout out to EDC. Great move there. I would have been pissed. Unless it's for Micah Parsons, I'm pissed if the Ravens trade Bateman. If we're not getting CeeDee Lamb or Micah Parsons, I don't want Bateman off this team going to the Cowboys. You know what I mean? Like, I'll take a Bateman trade for Micah Parsons. I will take that. But other than that, we got to keep Bateman. And I'm just joking because that trade would never happen. But We have to keep Bateman on this deal, and he's going to keep balling out. I know it. I know it. Last year is just scratching the surface. That was that first confidence building year. Like, all right, like everything that he knew he could do his whole life, that he did in college, he can still do. Bateman had so many big plays for us last year. The deep ball connection with Lamar was growing. Lamar hit him on a couple deep ball shots. Lamar was throwing to Bateman when he was covered. You know, that Chargers game, hell of a catch. I mean, there's so many plays that come to mind that Bateman just really balled out for us, bailed us out of so many situations, is a great compliment to Zay Flowers. Now we're adding DeAndre Hopkins to that mix as well, which is super exciting. But regardless, for us to extend Bateman on that deal, for Bateman to be producing the way that he did last year, and I think those numbers are growing, at least the yards. Bateman is going to be more involved, in my opinion. There's just no way you can let a guy go like that. And I think it's funny that now all of a sudden people are calling Baltimore wanting their wide receivers. You know, like when Zay Flowers' contract is almost up, are people going to be trying to trade for Zay? It's just funny because now we before we could never get a wide receiver that anybody wanted. It was the place that wide receivers would avoid, you know, and I know a lot of that was the Greg Roman offense, but it's just weird how the tides have turned. You know, when we got Odell, I felt like that was like the first, you know, shift a little bit, but we paid Odell so much that I was like, okay, he probably just came for the money too, right? Like he doesn't even care how big his role is because he's getting paid way more than anyone thought he was going to get paid. But it seemed like it broke the ice a little bit, and then bringing in Todd Monken totally changed the passing game of this offense. Lamar Jackson balling out the way he did. Now I don't think it's weird for a receiver to want to come to Baltimore at all. Baltimore is a destination for wide receivers because they know they can go there and ball out with Lamar. Lamar just threw for 41 touchdown passes, you know, and I know we have a loaded offense, but you can produce and succeed on a winning team and be getting great minutes in the playoffs and making big plays when it matters. And that'll get you paid in the future by getting all that exposure on a good team if you don't stay in Baltimore. So it's a great move for wide receivers to want to come to Baltimore now. And it's just funny to see other teams wanting to pluck the Baltimore Ravens wide receivers, man. The narrative has completely flipped. And I just thought it was super interesting that Jerry Jones was trying to trade for Rashod Bateman before George Pickens. When this came out, I was like, man, this is weird to see, you know, a bunch of other teams trying to get our wide receivers. So I wanted to come on here, talk about it a little bit with you guys. I dropped a video earlier on a lot of other updates, but this one just came out, so I wanted to hop on and bring the news to you guys and just talk about this. But let me know what your thoughts are on this situation, on Rashod Bateman and his career so far, and what you're expecting from him moving forward with the Ravens. Appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in to another episode of the Flock Rundown. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll let the greatest linebacker in the history of the game take us out.
Ravens Flock. Flock Rundown is the place to be. My man Ryan has been a lifelong Ravens fan since he was born. The Flock Rundown. Nothing gets better than waking up and wondering how high we can fly. Tune in.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.